So if you're like me and you just watched the Netflix series Aries, you're like, what in the world did I just watch? Is this a supernatural horror? Is it a social commentary? Is it a little of both? Well, I'm hopefully going to explain it all for you, or at least a whole bunch of it. Now, admittedly, I might miss something, and I would love for your feedback in the comments below. If I missed something, if I got something wrong, if you think I have a different theory, that's awesome. Share it in the comments as we go along. Also, just as a heads up, because, well, if I'm going to be talking about it and explaining it, this is going to have spoilers. If you haven't seen it or you don't want to see a video that does have spoilers about Aries, then you can check out my review for it. I've linked it up in the corner, one of these two places, and in the description below. That one won't have spoilers, and then you can watch the series, come back, and then join in the discussion if that's what you want to do. Okay, so just a brief overview of the show. Aries is a secret society. It's tough to get in. Everybody there has just utter high pedigrees. I mean, they're from rich, powerful families. Rosa, who's a relative nobody and comes from basically no money, has a friend Jacob who is in Aries, or at least trying to be in Aries, and she follows him in and kind of finagles her way in to the initiation. He doesn't want her to join, but she joins anyway because she is determined. She is driven. She wants it, and she doesn't know necessarily why, but she definitely wants something better than what she has. She is tired of being just the downtrodden, just the doing without, however you want to classify her. Once we're inside Aries, craziness ensues. There is imagery of a person or a creature. We're not exactly sure what it is. They're covered in this blackness or even what could be blood with a giant chain around them. And there's this knocking and pounding noise and just an air of mystery that surrounds the entire secret society. There are a few themes that are woven throughout Aries. The first is ambition. Each of the novices are driven to succeed, and some of them at any cost. It doesn't matter. They are willing to do it to succeed, to get into Aries, to continue their legacy, their family's legacy, and which means power, wealth, influence, whatever that each of them has, because they each come from a specialized unit within society. Some might be in government, some might be in arms, some might be in science, politics, whatever that is. Rosa demonstrates her ambition because she is willing to give up her family in order to pursue Aries. And then even darker than that, she's willing to cover up a suicide and then lie about other things in order to attain a internship. Or rather, to steal the internship from somebody that already has it within Aries. And Fleur, because Rosa has stolen her internship, is willing to kill Rosa over it. I mean, we see that as we begin the third act, how they're just going ham on each other and Fleur is attacking Rosa. Now, it's not only because of stealing the internship, there is also the supposed Fleur believes that Rosa killed her brother, even though he didn't. He committed suicide, but that doesn't matter. She is going to just bound and determined to get revenge on her. Now, another theme throughout this is power, and that's what everybody is hoping to achieve through Aries. That's why their families have taken part for generations. All of the power that comes from being in there. This is the hub of every major decision that happens in the Netherlands, at least according to the series. You can even see that at the beginning where Rosa has followed Jacob in and, well, she kind of just gets tugged along at that point. She goes with the group to the museum, to the art gallery, and they're all looking at that giant, I believe it's a Van Gogh painting, and pointing out their relatives throughout it. Or where, oh, well, that's my great-great-grandfather over there. Oh, that's my, that's mine. Whatever. It's crazy. So you can see the power, the influence that their families have, and that it goes back centuries. You see power take hold of Rosa. I mean, power means success for her, and she is going to do anything she can to get that, because that means control of her life. That means changing her life. That means influence in her life. I mean, she comes from nothing. She has no money, and so she understands that having no money, having no influence like that means no power. But if you can have that, you do have power. And she even calls out to illustrate it even more so when she talks to the doctor in her class that she's like, you only operate, or you only, work on the rich people. What about all these people who can't afford it? That's not fair. That doesn't make any sense. You're giving more power to the powerful and letting all of the weak ones just flounder at the wayside and take a pill. Oh, now Emeritus. He is not the president anymore, but he has been the president. But you see the power that he still wields, even though he's not in charge, at least as the president. But what I get the sense is he is the head of Aries. He is the one calling all of the shots. He is the one driving everything because everybody looks to him. He's the one that leads the memorial service. He's the one that leads the presidential nomination thingamajiggy at the very end. I mean, he is the one pulling all the strings. And so power is very important to Emeritus. And you see that through a lot of his dialogue as well. The largest and the main theme throughout Aries is guilt. Now, we are told at the very end that Baal doesn't exist, that it's just made up, that it's to keep all of the members in line, in control, that they expel their guilt. It allows them to make the tough decisions and then to be able to release that guilt for those decisions that they have to make. Because, as Emeritus says, he's calling on these people to make decisions, the tough decisions that nobody else is willing to make. And so you know that there's a lot of sacrifice going on in there, and that probably a lot of morals being bent or broken in the pursuit of these decisions. And so collectively, the group, as it's gone along, the society, they feel guilty for this. They have to deal with that in some way, and it manifests itself into that black bile. But they're told that it is to feed Baal and then keep it satisfied so that just chaos doesn't ensue. Now, Rosa's mom escaped from Aries, right? She broke out. She was engaged to Emeritus. So she was a key player in there. And he even talks about how powerful she was and how influential she was, how awesome she would have been had she stayed in. But we see what happens when she got out. She is driven mad because she is still feeling all of that guilt. She has no output of it. She doesn't know how to reconcile herself with that. And she fully believes that Baal is real. And so that's driving her nuts too. And that's how you see that downward spiral of her character. How she tries to commit suicide multiple times and she almost succeeds the last time, where she slits her wrists a bunch and she goes into the hospital. And that's also then when we find out that she was engaged to Emeritus before, because his daughter tells her, oh, this is my last name, Carmen, this is my last name. And she's like, wait, what? And then we unfold the story there. Now, the black swirling pool, I mean, that is all of the guilt. It is a living entity. You see it just swirling and swirling around, and it is the result of generations just vomiting up their bile and putting it into this spot, and it has taken on a life of its own. And by doing that, the members of Aries, they assuage their soul, they reconcile themselves, they're all good to go. But that's not really what happens to them. I mean, they may think that they've done that because they've expelled it, they've put out all of that black nastiness, which, let's just be honest, that was gross to watch, right? Especially when the big bubble thingamajigger comes out as that, like, oof, that was nasty. And they think that it's offering them, by them doing this offering of guilt, that it's also giving them the repentance. But it's not true repentance, because they still feel the guilt, the shame, the fear of these decisions that they've made in the past. We see that as evidenced because when Rosa jumps into the pool and then comes out, which we'll talk about a little bit more in just a second, but they all start slitting their throats and killing themselves. Why? Because they believe that Baal is real, and they can't, it is their guilt, their shame, their evil deeds come to life, coming out now. The monster has been released and it's to be revealed. And so they're not guilt-free of it, even though they think they are. Because if they were, they would just see it and go, well, you have no power over me because I've expelled it all. I think this is really important as it shows the imagery as Rosa goes into the pool, the pond, the swirling, massive, nasty black bile, is that all of the imagery from, it goes up into the slave ship, which, the Dutch were heavily involved in the slave trade for several centuries, that's crazy to think about there. But then also you just see all of the paintings, and it's representing all of the generations of guilt that have put their stuff into this. I mean, they have been shaping this country from the very get-go based on tough decisions, what they call tough decisions, which we might call morally wrong. Now, when Jacob has his hand on the wall and his couple of fingers turn black, that then symbolizes more of the guilt being transferred to him. That it's a living entity within him. And they believe, the people that he touches, I mean, he touches on their forehead or their face or wherever, I mean, they believe that Baal is real. And so their guilt, their shame of their decisions that they had to do to become president or to become whatever they needed to do, it becomes utter realism again to them. They relive that moment, and it drives them insane. And that's why you see one hang himself, one just slit his throat in the shower. I mean, the doctor has herself, she stabs herself with Rosa's hand on the scalpel. That was gross too, and that had to have been terribly painful. Well, all of them had to have been terribly painful. But the fact is, there's not really anything supernatural necessarily going on there. It's the guilt manifesting itself because they've been touched, and they have this belief system that Baal is real, and that is going to bring it about. Now we see Rosa at the very beginning when she first vomits up all of the black bile. I mean, that is her. She has felt guilty. She's asked at that moment, did you feel guilty when you vomited? Yes. Well, how do you feel now? I feel nothing. I feel okay. I mean, there's just, she has been relieved of that. She has bought into this, that when she releases all of that, it's all gone. Good to go. I can move forward guilt-free. But I love what this means for her at the end. As she's sitting over the pool and you just see the large lump in her throat just growing and growing like it's getting ready to come out, and she's just fighting it back, and she swallows it. She holds it in. She takes ownership of it and makes it her own. And right there, she has grabbed control. She is showing her ambition, her power, but also her willingness to put all of the madness to an end. That she is willing to make a sacrifice, that she is willing to do what it takes to put the end to Aries. She takes all of her guilt, stuffs it back in and says, nope, this is mine. I am not just going to give it up, and I'm going to hold on to it because I'm going to try and figure it out or reconcile it on my own. I talked about it earlier, but when Rosa goes into the pool, she is taking on the persona of Baal. She is just saying, nope, this is who I am now. And everybody buys it hook, line, and sinker. But we also get foreshadowing when Jacob, I think I've called him Jacob before because that's just how it's spelled, but Jacob touches her, that he sees an image of her. Now, I think he does figure out that it is her. She's covered in the black or the blood. We later find out it is actually black. And she is chained to Baal. So he is seeing that they are one, and that also lets him know what he needs to do, that she has to become president. She has to be in charge because she is then the only one who can release Baal. And by doing that, destroy it and destroy the myth of it and just let everybody know that, nope, it's not real, and it's going to create utter chaos. And I'm not sure he foresaw everybody killing themselves over that, but that is the end result. As the people are all killing themselves, that means their offerings meant nothing, that they didn't really release themselves of anything. Their actions, their decisions have come back to haunt them. And Baal is walking through, looking at them. She doesn't even have to touch them. She's just walking by. But even just the fear of it as the leadership runs out first off, and then you see the first dude just slit his throat. He knows what's coming, and it's just utter terror and utter chaos because Baal has escaped, has come out. It is not satisfied anymore, and they're in trouble. Now, what gets me too in this is Meredith has said that Baal is not real, and yet when Rosa goes in and then comes out, he freaks out, and he stabs himself in the chest, and then he rips his face off. I don't know what's going on with that. What in the world would possess you to cut and rip your face off before you die? But that's the madness. That is the chaos of him, all of this guilt of all of his decisions being manifested and really just coming back on him when he sees Rosa. I love that Rosa's dad is the counterpoint to all of this. He is a man who has learned how to reconcile his guilt, how to live with it, how to be okay with it, and how to move forward and past it. That he can look at her and embrace her. He is not afraid. He just gives up, accepts her, and gives her a hug and lets her know that all is well. He is not one who is afraid of his past decisions. Sure, did they shape him? Maybe he has felt some guilt. Maybe he has felt some shame. But it hasn't been so much where he tries to just expel it and then like it never existed and try and move forward. But not moving forward, he really has moved forward. I like that. I think that that was a great strength that he showed in that moment. He also lets her know that he has forgiven Rosa, that she is safe in his arms. And I think that's powerful too, because he's releasing her of her guilt as well. But then the twist comes. We see as they're embracing, she opens her eyes and they've changed. And right there it went, ooh, wait a minute. This actually does have a real supernatural element to it. Baal is real. It is an entity of darkness. What? So where does this take the series? I don't know. I'm curious. I'm really curious if they're going to do a season 2. But okay, let's address the one huge elephant in the room that I have not addressed yet. And that's the old woman who is first there present, chained up when Meritus is a teenager and he's vomiting up his black egg thingamajiggy. And then she's the one trapped in the glass room and she's talking about releasing all of her darkness. I don't know. I'm lost on her. I truly... Is she the devil? Is she some just evil entity? Is she just a manifestation of all of their guilt, but differently? I don't know. And how old is she actually? Because she was old then and she's still old now and she didn't look like she's aged. So I would really love your help in that. If you know theories or you have, well, if you have theories or you know what she is or what she represents, then that would be awesome, because maybe I missed it. Maybe there was a line of dialogue that I didn't catch, but I don't think so. So there are supernatural elements to this, even though the visions are mostly manifestations of the people's guilt. But we saw the swirling black pool. It's been swirling for centuries, so there is something going on there. And then obviously with Rosa's eyes changing, she's become Baal. So what did I miss? What did I get wrong? What just do you not agree with? Do you agree with? Let's continue the conversation in the comments. I love learning. I love discussing with everybody because I know that I didn't get everything right. I'm 100% sure that I didn't. These are just some of the things that I picked up on, some of the things that I think are right. But again, I didn't write the series. I didn't talk with the writers, so I don't know for 100% fact. But I'd love to hear your comments as well. If you enjoyed this explanation video, please give it a like. Also, if you could, share it around. And if you aren't a subscriber, please consider doing so. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for catching with me.